Running for the 16th district in Suffolk County for the Suffolk County Legislature is Hector Gavilla, a fresh new face in politics for Long Island, a personal friend of mine and truly a force to deal with in the face of corruption that precedes him in Suffolk County. Hector plans to beat down the corruption with his own inimitable style as soon as he is elected. I know very few people in this world like honest and forthright in their endeavors, and Hector Gavilla is one of those people. Dedicated and hardworking, he is honest, and this is the trifecta for success for Hector wants to earn his seat in Suffolk County's legislature this year. A vote for candidate Hector Gavilla is a vote for needed positive change. Welcome, Hector.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself so the audience can become familiar with what you're up to.
Okay, great. Well, my name is Hector Gavilla. I'm a real estate broker in Comac. I have two teenagers, my daughter Sarah and my son Nicholas, and I'm very proud of them. I'm a real estate broker, owner of a business, and for the past few years, I've seen the people that we are working with, helping them sell their homes, and they share with us their problems and the issues they have, and I really am having a very good understanding of why many people are leaving Long Island, because we're, in Suffolk County specifically, because we're a county that's being overtaxed, and people just can't afford to live here anymore. And what Ballone is doing is really horrible to all of us, because
Ballone's a Suffolk County executive.
Right, he's the Suffolk County executive right now, and there's supposed to be a 2% increase cap each year on the taxes, but because they can't tap into that, what they're doing is charging us with excessive fees. Fee is a three-letter word for tax. So this year alone, they added another $50 million in fees, including a mortgage fee, including alarm fees, red light camera fees, that generates approximately $90 million in revenue, and it's still not enough because they cannot afford to pay their bills.
What does it do to increase the fees in things like in taxes and red light camera tickets, as you say? What does it do for the common person living in the neighborhoods of these communities that have these situations go on?
Well, it makes them feel victimized. For example, I know a Boy Scout troop that couldn't go on their annual camping trip because the camping fees went too high for a campsite. With the red light cameras, for example, people feel victimized because they make a right turn into a shopping center and they didn't wait enough 3 seconds for that. They feel like victims. The mortgage fees, the recording fees. If, for example...
There's already a lot of closing fees when it comes to closing on a house that you buy. So now they've increased that number, is that it?
They created new fees that didn't exist before. So, for example, if you refinance your house, it's going to cost you anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 in new fees to Suffolk County that didn't exist before.
Wow, that's a big number.
Yes, and the new made-up fee that they made up was a tax map ID verification fee, which simply means that you sitting on the computer working for Suffolk County Clerk's office just checks on the computer. It takes less than 4 minutes to make sure that the tax ID, the map ID, matches on the computer.
How do they get away?
Because you know how they get away? Because no one is complaining and no one is holding them accountable. And this is potentially illegal what they're doing.
That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, and it's illegal what they're doing because the cost to record the tax map ID and to make sure it matches what's on the contract, the cost did not go up. It's still the same six or seven people that are working in the Suffolk County Clerk's office doing the same job they've been doing for years.
I always say to do what that is in terms of closing, one clerk can do it and just pay the one salary all year long. That's all you need. You just need one clerk to just be doing that, and you wouldn't need all these salaries to compensate for.
The problem is Steve Ballone is having trouble paying his bills. He's having trouble paying the employees. So they had about, I believe, a $32 million gap in the budget. So they went to their people and said, what can we do to take money from the people? And they figured, okay, people that are refinancing, getting a mortgage, anything that you do, get a home equity line of credit where you have to record that with this Suffolk County clerk, let's charge them. And they
buy
added
a house,
fees.
Pay more money for it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
ridiculous.
Was your original intention to go into politics some of these reasons? You said before that you spoke to your neighbors and found out about some of these problems. Would you say that that was one of the reasons because of all these things that you found out about?
Well, there's many reasons, but what I'm also noticing is that the county is fiscally irresponsible. So, as I mentioned, I walk around, I walk through Comac Road, I walk in my local neighborhood, and I see that they're not doing the job of even keeping the place clean. You walk along the street, you see garbage along the street, and these aren't county roads. So it's like, what are they doing? We're spending so much money on taxes and these fees, as I mentioned, and people just don't feel like they're living in a nice environment.
I always felt that government has it in for itself and doesn't really take much into account for those people that they're supposed to be representing. Just to increase the fees simply means that's going to support their retirement accounts and their salaries and things that are like that for government to operate. That's not what the people want. The people are being drained of their of some of their assets.
Correct. And the government takes care of their own. The employees that are government employees, they're getting paid very well. And of course, we want to pay them well, but we just can't afford it. And some of these government unions, such as the PBA, they're the strongest union in Suffolk County. And they really own the politicians right now that are in the Suffolk County legislature. And they were able to negotiate themselves a very nice contract where the police were able to get a 28% increase in pay over the course of 8 years. Now, what job do you know of where you would get a 28% increase?
I don't know. I think I sustained a 5% decrease this year.
Right. Most people are seeing their income stay the same.
The cost of
or
just
stagnant.
living in the same place I was last year cost me 2 or 3%. So.
Correct.
So the rest of it's
correct. And also, and again, I love the police. I'm pro-police. I have a lot of friends that are police. However, and we want them to have good salaries. However, we have to pay what we can afford. And this budget is out of control. And that goes back to why they're creating all these made-up fees,
their
like the
salaries
mortgage fees
are
and all that.
responsible to what monies that the county brings in. That's why it bothers me that they keep on drafting from everybody in the form of taxes and fees.
Correct. And they're borrowing too. And they're taking from one fund and using that money that's supposed to go to one fund and using it to pay the other funds to actually pay the employees, Suffolk County employees. Now, also, I read in the paper too that Steve Ballone this year had to borrow $60 million.
The county's close to bankruptcy, as I hear.
They are very close to bankruptcy, but they tell the big lie. They're dishonest Democrats in Suffolk County, and they try to pretend that they're fiscally conservative, but they're anything from that.
Yeah,
they
are
so reckless with the spending. I went to a meeting where they voted and they approved to spend $60,000 to do a study on the best routes for kayaking in Suffolk County. That's ridiculous. And when one of the legislators, Robert Trotta, questioned them, how are you going to spend the $60,000 specifically? They couldn't answer. They were stammering and stuttering. And I'm talking about the Department of Public Works, Gil Anderson, couldn't answer that question specifically. That's our money. That's the taxpayer money. And they want to use $60,000 to study the rivers and not, the waterways in Suffolk County to do what with?
They're there, right, exactly.
I mean, how do you spend, how can you not answer it? And then they rubber stamp it and said, we're going to approve it, but we don't know what we're going to do with that money. And plus, part of what they agreed to do was spend over $1 million in the next 2 years on that study alone.
Before we get into some of the serious issues, I want to talk about the gang issue in a minute. Well, let's talk about that first. Recently, you're not far away from that area where the MS-13 gang has had some recent press. Is that what can be done with that? I know there's a lot of talk about it on the federal level, but on the local level?
What I find on the local level is there's a lot of excuses rather than action. And what we can do on the local level is we can go round up illegal immigrants that are committing crimes, and the police know where they live. What is a fact is the average MS-13 gang member is a teenager. They're children that are committing these crimes. Also, what's a fact is that these individuals are coming here illegally from Central America. Okay, now we have a big problem of unintended minors coming in from Central America illegally, and they're being located with sponsor families in Suffolk County, but specifically into neighborhoods like Brentwood and Central Islip.
They're illegal immigrants coming in and being sponsored by someone who is legal, is that it?
Well, I don't know if the people are legal or not, but they're being brought in, and the worst part of it is that we cannot even track them because our government has so much bureaucracy and has allowed this to happen for so long that we know they're coming in, but once they're in, we don't even know where they're being placed. And the idea that it's okay to have the young people and say that they're refugees and these are young children that are coming here is nonsense to say that that's okay, because the MS-13 gang members are children and they're killing other children in our communities. So what we have to do is we have to deport the illegal immigrants, especially the ones that are being arrested for crimes. And the excuse I'm being told is that if there's no warrant from ICE, then they're not going to report them to ICE. That's nonsense. If I get elected, I want to create laws that will require the police to report to ICE any individual that they know is here illegally. And that's very important after they've arrested them. Even if the result of the arrest comes out that they're innocent, the fact that they arrested them and they brought them in, these people are not contributing to our society. And we know that that's where the drugs and crimes are coming from. They're coming from Central America. So we have to stop them from coming here.
So the drug issue is also infiltrated into that gang, not just the, well, they don't have a platform, do they? Or a design of some kind? They just kill?
These are just bad people. This is evil. It's pure evil.
They don't have any compensation in any way to look forward to? What is their intention?
I don't pretend to be an expert, but I just know what I've been reading, and I also know my friends. And this is a town that neighbors my district. So I have friends that live in Fia, and they're immigrants, and they're the first ones to say that we have to deport these people. Fellow immigrants.
Right.
My parents are immigrants. They came here from Cuba legally, and they resent the fact that there are people that came here and it was so easy, and that they don't come here with jobs. Because back in the day, the previous immigrants had to prove that they could contribute to society, that they had jobs here, they had families here, that they weren't going to be dependent on a government. Now we have these bad people, these evil people.
And they're not assimilating in a normal fashion to work here or create a family here or put money back into the system. They're just taking from it illegally and probably very dangerously.
Right. And I'm not here to say that I'm anti-immigrant, because obviously my family came here as immigrants. My grandparents worked four different dishwashing jobs. They were poorer than poor. And my father was brought up in a projects in the city. He hated that, and he fled that area, left it behind to come here to Suffolk County, which is another issue that I want to talk about as well.
Yeah, what is it about the space? Like, when I bought my house, I bought it to get a little bit more space. I came out to Huntington, which I thought was kind of country. I came from the city also, and I thought that it was a better environment for me. I like the space. I like the idea. Now in Huntington, I hear that some of the other towns you've recently walked across are building low-income housing that are going to cram people into certain communities. Is that what I hear is true?
Yes, yes. This is something that no one is talking about, and I'm trying to address this in my campaign. Suffolk County, specifically Steve Ballone, wants to build low-income housing projects at every train station in Suffolk County. They already started in Wyandanch. They have the Wyandanch Village. The project was called Wyandanch Rising. It is a colossal failure. They spent $400 million of taxpayer money to build 177 apartments for low-income people to live there. We would have saved more money by giving each of those individuals $400,000 each to buy a house than the money that they invested in there. The entire first floor of these two buildings, it's two buildings of apartments that are 5 stories each.
That's a very dramatic example you gave. We'd be better off to give them a house.
Exactly. If you look at the numbers, okay, what I also want is, if you look at the numbers, it's a failure. The reason why no private investor would invest in that is because it would take over 100 years to see a return on investment with the plan that they laid out. So that's why Steve Ballone will brag and say, well, government had to invest in this. Baloney. The problem with this program is that a private investor would never invest in this because there would be no profitability for them. And instead, we're losing. We lost $400 million of taxpayer money that we'll never see again. We have individuals there that have to show that they don't make more than a certain income, so they have to stay low income. Every year, they have to recertify. If you're an individual that rents in there, and then the following year, you're no longer low income, you could get evicted from those apartments. Also, the other lie that they say is that they're trying to help the community. That's only 177 people that supposedly they help, but they don't, because they just keep them poor forever. What I was about to say too is on the first floor of this building in the Wyandanch Village is dedicated to retail space. It's empty. it's a ghost town. If you're a business owner, you're not going to open up a restaurant, you're not going to open up a store
in a low-income
in a
area.
low-income area, knowing that these are 177 people that have absolutely no disposable income. They don't have the money to buy something at a Starbucks or go to a restaurant.
The only thing I can see is that there might be some payers who might put back into the system tax-wise or revenue-wise for the county. I don't see any advantage to that.
Yeah, and there is no revenue here because they're also being subsidized by the taxpayers to afford to live in these apartments as well. There is a bank, and I won't mention the name, but there's a bank that rents space there on the first floor. And the only reason that they operate that bank is because New York State has agreed to open up bank accounts to keep them profitable,
Wow.
keep them running. Because no bank would ever open up a branch in a low-income area that they know that they won't be able to have enough accounts to keep it sustained. So the only reason that that bank is running is because New York State has put money in there. And of course, New York State has to open up bank accounts in banks, so they agreed to keep it there. But if they ever pull the money out, then that bank will close that branch.
So what towns are you talking about here in just in Suffolk County?
Well,
Anyone that has a train station? I mean,
yes, if you read what Ballone is saying, he uses fancy words. He'll say transit-oriented communities, but that's code for low-income housing projects. And it's at every train station. They also want to build in Ronkonkoma. They want to build in Farmingdale. And they want to have the same failures that they had in Wyandanch. And you have to walk there. I walked it myself. I walked the entire Wyandanch village. And it is a disaster. It's a failure.
amazing.
And they do want to do this at every train station because the big lie is that they're telling people that this is going to help young people, that young people want to live in these communities. Well, you know what? The young people that may be living there in the Wyandanch village or any people that are living there, there's no stores for miles around.
So what solution could you provide for, say, constituents that maybe surround this area when the daunting possibility would be that they would be overcrowded with a lot of apartment buildings?
They have to vote Republican this November. They have to vote Republican for the Suffolk County Legislature so we can put an end to this madness. And this is only the beginning. There's also another big project in the works, the Heartland, which has become
Deer Park area, right?
Yeah, it's in the former Pilgrim State
Right.
property.
Right.
They plan to build 9,000 low-income apartments that are small, one-bedroom and two-bedroom apartments. And now they feel...
I travel the area sometimes going up and down Saginaw Coast. It's already crowded. You can't get through at certain rush hours. 9,000 apartments are going to put, what, 15,000, 18,000 people on the road coming out of that area. How is that possibly going to work unless you put a 4-lane highway in that area?
Yeah, not only will it cause congestion, but it will absolutely bring crime and drugs. There is nothing racist about my statement because I am Hispanic, okay, and my family was poorer than anyone can know, okay, but they came here, they worked very hard, and my father, my family came to Long Island thinking they came to the suburbs, to the rural area, and he thought he escaped the projects that he grew up in, and he's amazed that he survived.
And the
overcrowding. He hated living there. And this will produce crime. It will produce the wrong element. It's just a fact. There is a correlation between the low-income areas and crime, and it will increase it. And it's in our backyard. We already have it in Wyandanch, and we're going to have it here in Brentwood at the Pilgrim State, former Pilgrim State property.
Oh, it's amazing they have this even in consideration. I hope somebody can stop that, and I hope you can stop it. Do you have a pet project other than the ones we just spoke about that you might want to consider working on going forward that might assist the members in your community to improve their lot?
Well,
or anything that you'd like to do?
Well, what I'd like to do is assist the people in lowering the cost of living to have to live here, and there's the majority of people that the government is neglecting. So what I'd like to do is reduce the fees.
Could you have meetings, for instance, at certain community levels or certain municipal areas to inform them, because that's what they need. They need an education in this area.
Yes, they need an education. What I would like to do is have meetings. I plan on having town hall meetings where I can meet with community members, find out what their individual issues are, which I have been doing informally and speaking to people in social media, finding out, what our common issues are. And I'm finding that we have a lot in common, regardless of what political party we're in. Okay, nobody wants crime, nobody wants drugs. In my district, for example, we've had people come in from the neighboring towns and people committing crimes already, breaking into cars, breaking into homes, home invasions, and so on. And we're just afraid that, by introducing more of these low-income housing projects, if the Heartland goes through, it would be the biggest low-income housing project on Long Island ever. And we're talking about 10-story buildings of
How can we do this?
one-bedroom and two-bedroom
When Grumman
apartments.
left Long Island, it took with it a lot of people that were working for them or in the ancillary or technical companies that were engineering certain aspects of the aviation industry, and they're gone. When that happened, we lost a lot of our availability of income and better paying jobs. How is it going to get better for the island with the weight of all these low-income areas and not the industry to produce?
Thank you very much for bringing that up, because you just reminded me of something. When my father first came here as a young man with his family, with me as a child when I was 3, 4 years old, the reason he moved out to Suffolk County was because there were employers like Grumman and big companies, Fairchild and so on, okay? And that's what brought the people here, because the businesses were here providing very high-paying jobs.
This is a no-brainer for me. I can't understand why they don't get it.
The same here, but here's what I don't understand about Suffolk County, and I'm trying to educate people on this. And you asked about a pet project. We need to make Suffolk County, we need to make Long Island more business-friendly. When we talk about the increased taxes and the increased fees, well, guess what? The businesses are getting hit with even higher fees and higher taxes. What I have seen in the past 20, 30, 40 years is that businesses like Grumman and other businesses are leaving to go to other states. Like, for example, one of the most recent was MetLife had an office here in Hauppauge. Over 1,000 jobs left to go to North Carolina, and it wasn't because of the weather. Is because they're being overtaxed here. And that's what the politicians like Steve Ballone don't understand, is that if you're going to make this a business-unfriendly environment, you're going to make it more appealing for businesses to want to move to North Carolina, to Florida, to Texas and other states, maybe even other countries. And you know what the excuse I hear from these dishonest Democrats? They'll say, well, they moved because they merged with another company. Well, guess what? Yeah, they merged with another company, and that new company realized that it's difficult to do business here in Suffolk County, and it was better to do it in another state. And that has to stop.
If you don't have the jobs, you can't support the people that live in the community.
Correct.
They'll be traveling elsewhere. And if they're traveling elsewhere, they're going to also spend elsewhere. So then that could be an integral part of the community itself.
100%. I want young people. I want people to have high-paying jobs. But where are the employers that have the high-paying jobs? Every year they're leaving Long Island and they're going to other places. So this nonsense about building low-income housing projects to keep young people here and happy is a bunch of fluff.
It's amazing how we, the people, can't fight back the taxes. I mean, the tax issue is a bigger problem than anything else we have. If you could reduce if you could reduce the taxation issue, we can invest in our business. We can invest even in our home. The buildings people and everyone that surrounds the community is going to suffer.
Well, part of the problem is that people like Steve Ballone have never owned a business, and they don't understand that if you don't have enough revenue coming in, what you're supposed to do is cut your expenses. I'm a business owner.
Right.
If I'm not making enough money, what I do naturally is I have to cut people, lay off people if I have to. It's painful to do, but you have to cut your expenses. We have the police budget, for example, which I mentioned before, is over $500 million, I believe, okay? And it's something we can't afford. So how on earth did he negotiate such a sweetheart deal where these police were getting over a 28% increase in 8 years is really fiscally irresponsible, because we can't pay the bills. So we need to go to the different departments. By the way, that contract expires in 2018, but we need to go to the different departments. There's 32 departments in Suffolk. So if I get elected, one of the things I'm going to do, another project would be to go to the department heads and find out how they can make cuts in each department, because everybody knows how,
Sure.
and give them a financial incentive to
That's
even
what
make
Trump
cuts
is
at
doing
10%.
now, is also watching a little bit of that. Now, last minute, is there anything that you can do if you were elected to help other members, even though most of them are Democrats in Suffolk County and that are probably the cause of this, to help convince them that to make this a more business-friendly environment and to keep these low-income housings away would be a good idea?
Right. Well, I'm very good at speaking with people and teaching them. So what I would do is I'd go over the budget with them and just have basically like business 101, and not be demeaning to anybody, but just help them understand that fiscal responsibility that they've been practicing these past few years is only going to hurt Suffolk County.
I appreciate the amount of time you spent on this and that you're walking the neighborhoods, because that's a hell of a good way to meet the constituents and find out what they're all the way up to.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Hector Gavilla, and good luck in your election. I hope you do get elected. You've been watching Gray Matters, a program that shines a light on the society that we live in. We keep you in touch with current events, political and hot-button issues of the day, bringing you right into the examination room of your home. We measure the path and distance that got you where you are today. We can all use a dose of perspective, and this is the place to get it. Thank you for watching Gray Matters, and we'll be right back here again next week.